As I mentioned, Mike Seepkis is going to take us home, giving us some interesting things to think about related to sea lamprey control and indigenous communities. So, Mike, with that, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you, John, and thanks to everybody for sticking around for the Sea Lamprey Commons session. We've had a really nice group of talks, I think, covering lots of different aspects. And I wanted to talk a little bit today about some of the work that the Sea Lamprey Control Directorate and the control agents have been doing to engage our indigenous partners around the Great Lakes and sea lamprey control activities. It's a journey that we've been on for quite some time, but certainly is evolving and evolving in some very positive ways. And so I'd like to highlight some of those instances and that really set the stage for how this is going to look probably going into the future. So without further ado, I'd like to recognize a whole group of tribes, bands, First Nations that have really been great partners as we've moved into lots of different agreements around the basin to better incorporate indigenous communities and indigenous knowledge into the sea lamprey control process. So this is just a representation of the folks that I've had the pleasure of having lots of great engagement and conversations with over the years. And certainly there's lots of people in the audience today too, both past and present, that have been really significant in the development of these great relationships that we have to better engage our indigenous partners in our sea lamprey control activities. So just to start out by setting the stage of how we do business, at least at the Commission and within sea lamprey control, not that you read the details of this figure here, but this just shows the Commission, the formation, what we do, and really just to highlight that the Commission is as we all know, sitting in these meetings, is that we're an organization formed by treaty between the U.S. and Canada, and we do business by building consensus. So we bring people together, we sometimes have competing interests, competing objectives, and we set that stage to have those meaningful discussions to come to common ground and to create good decisions for everybody. And really that's the name of the game, and that's why I believe the Commission has been so successful over the 70-year history that it has. And really that's what we're talking about here today. So the indigenous perspective obviously has been part of this as well. And perhaps, you know, probably the best example of that as we consider why we're here in the Lake Committee process is the Joint Strategic Plan. This is a figure that's represented on the Commission website, and it just shows all the signatory agencies to the Joint Strategic Plan, and it doesn't include, at least on the U.S. side, many tribal organizations, one individual tribe, as being signatories to this plan, and that was a decision that was made many decades ago, is to make sure that we were inclusive of that within this process. And for sea lamprey control, we have a process for decision making. That the decision making, ultimately rests with the commissioners that are appointed by Parliament and the President, in the respective countries. But with that process, there's an advisory process that very much takes into account this Joint Strategic Plan process. So this is just a representation of how the information flows and the decision making is done, is that we have operational work groups and task forces that come up with plans for sea lamprey control activities around the basin. It gets submitted to a budget integration group or a program integration group, to basically knit all those things together to come up with a budget that then is considered by Sea Lamprey Control Board, and then that is passed up to the commissioners for ultimate decisions on what we do on a year-to-year basis. So the nexus of this is the Sea Lamprey Control Board, and that's where the Joint Strategic Plan process sort of integrates with Sea Lamprey Control. Membership on that board consists of representatives of the lake committees, outside experts in like integrated pest management, fishery ecology and research, natural resource management at the sort of the planning and fiscal level, amongst other experts. And within the current membership on the control board, we have a representative, Lake Committee representative from the Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission that sits there and provides an opportunity for that direct Indigenous perspective within the process, although through the lens of the lake committees for sure. So therein lies sort of the opportunities that we sit with today to take this perspective in. But really, it goes much deeper than that, and more down sort of operationally, as well as our control agents, the Fisheries and Oceans Canada and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, have developed many great relationships with some of the First Nations and tribes in which we conduct sea lamprey control on their reserve lands or traditional territories. So, and oftentimes we've heard today about the challenges that we face with like the social license to deliver sea lamprey control, and the direct engagement with our Indigenous partners out there in the Indigenous communities around the Great Lakes are really opportunities for us to be able to better engage critical communities to get, basically that social license acceptance for sea lamprey control. So I wanted to highlight some of the engagement that we've been doing and some successful examples on how this has rolled out, especially in recent years. One of the first ones is with Saugeen Ojibwe Nation on Lake Huron. We had a critical sea lamprey control dam that was in disrepair and actually failing in this system. The Saugeen River, I think by itself, might be one of the largest sea lamprey producing tributaries on Lake Huron if this dam had went away. And we were having trouble coming to consensus with the First Nations, with Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, on how we should go about rehabilitating this barrier. So we had some really good communication outreach work on the behalf of the commission by one of our commissioners, Commissioner McCain, who's now retired from the commission, but had a critical role in bringing the groups together to come up with a plan to go ahead and rehabilitate this, this critical barrier. And the process was so successful that it was highlighted in the primary literature in the Journal of Great Lakes Research, where there's a review document on that process and all the things that went well and went right with the engagement of the Commission, Fisheries and Oceans Canada, the province, and obviously Saugeen Ojibwe Nation to get this critical project done. So that's one of the great examples I think that we've had recently, where things worked really well. We're also working with Saugeen Ojibwe Nation to come up with a memorandum of understanding about how we're going to do sea lamprey control within their traditional territories as well. This is ongoing. We've had a few opportunities to go up and host, the First Nations hosted us, but the Commission put on these community gatherings at both Nawash and Saugeen First Nations to get community input, hear about concerns about lampricide applications, and the impacts of sea lamprey control on subsistence fisheries and commercial fisheries and whatnot within the waters of the Great Lakes there. And these meetings went really well, and we're still in development with this MOU with Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, but we should see hopefully an agreement signed here in the near future where it's going to strengthen our ability to work with our partners there to implement sea lamprey control. Another example is, I'm going to have two examples here where we talk about some of the local First Nations here, at least more local to the Sioux, with Mississauga First Nations, and specifically an agreement that was put into place to do some fisheries studies, some Indigenous knowledge studies on fish and fishing and sea lamprey control around this system. And really this was this allowed us to be able to go in and to treat the Mississauga River, which is a major sea lamprey producer, in partnership with this First Nation, and really was the gateway to allow us to get in there to do that after a year or two or more of deferred treatments in this regard. So again, this was one of the key agreements that we had to be able to do critical sea lamprey control within this system to Lake Huron. Another example, and we've seen this picture already today, is the lamprey mass in the Garden River. That was after basically treatment had been deferred from 2014 to 2020, I believe, and this is the resulting lamprey that were residing in this system before we were able to get back into the system and control them. And again, this was all done through an agreement with Garden River First Nations, where we agreed to help them with fishery studies, some traditional ecological knowledge studies, and really formed a great partnership between Fisheries and Oceans Canada, which is the Sea Lamprey Control Center here in the Sioux, with Garden River First Nations to do some of this critical work together. They're working hand in hand on some of the habitat work on not only the Garden River, but also other systems within their traditional territory here. So it's really provided these frameworks to develop these partnerships, and it's, in the end, it's all about the local people that are actually engaging in maintaining these, and these have been great opportunities for sea lamprey control to build those critical relationships at the grassroots level. Another recent one is the Bad River up in northern Wisconsin, tributary to Lake Superior. Sean Nowicki with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Jacob Rodmaker with Bad River were really critical in putting together a 10-year stewardship plan that governs how we conduct sea lamprey control within the Bad River. Again, the Bad River is probably the largest sea lamprey producing tributary on the south shore of Lake Superior. So another critical spot in which we need to make sure that we're able to do sea lamprey control on a regular basis there. And this agreement that was just signed last year frames up this relationship and how we're going to be able to do sea lamprey control for the next 10 years or so. One of the great things about this new agreement that we have is that there's less restrictions on sea lamprey treatments, largely due to the good relationship that we have, but also with the really professional way that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service conducts those treatments in this systems. There's been no non-target issues. We're also doing studies to help understand lampricide impacts on non-traditional non-target things like wild rice and things like that. So just a lot of trust that's being built with the open communications and the willingness to do different studies to make sure that we're better understanding how sea lamprey control impacts the communities. So again, another great example of things that are really moving forward in a good way. This agreement that we have here, highlighted with Walpole Island, has been defunct now for about 5 years, but it does represent, I think, a really good example of engaging with a local partner here to gather some critical information about sea lamprey. This largely affects more of the lower lakes, but there was a time where we were looking at sea lamprey production in the St. Clair River and Lake St. Clair area, and the potential of that system to be contributing major sea lamprey numbers to Lake Erie. It was in a time when we saw increased numbers in Lake Erie. We were concerned that we were going to get out of control really quickly, but we really didn't understand well how much contribution was being done to Lake Erie from this system. So we partnered with Walpole Island First Nation to run basically fight nets off of navigational buoys and to collect information on out-migrating sea lamprey in this system. And it really gave us it was a key piece of data that was used to basically determine that we really didn't have to worry, at least at this point, about sea lamprey production from the system. Even though there was large numbers of larvae there, they weren't making it out into Lake Erie in the frequency that we thought would be detrimental to the fish populations there. And so again, that work conducted by Walpole Island First Nation partners was critical in making those determinations. One of the things was mentioned here, both by several of the presenters, was the Supplemental Sea Lamprey Control Initiative, and many of you might wonder why we kind of left this one off the slate of talks that we set up for this comment session. And one of the reasons why is because we've had Nick Johnson here at the comment session within the last year or two. He's spoken at the Commission's annual meeting and has really highlighted the awesome impacts that he's been able to see in the experiments, within this project. But what it does is this highlights another area where we've had some really good engagement with our First Nation and tribal partners. We're conducting these experiments on local streams, mostly in the UP, but also potentially in this area of Canada as well. And we're working with our partners, like pictured here is the Keweenaw Bay Indian community. We have one of our subcon experiment streams is up on the Traverse River, and the Keweenaw Bay Indian community is largely responsible for all the on-the-ground netting and adult assessment work that's happening within this system. And they're working hand in hand with our researchers to implement the supplemental controls to see how much of an effect we can have on sea lamprey populations within these systems that could help us delay lampricide treatments or minimize the infestation area of sea lamprey, or other ways in which we can affect sea lamprey control and supplement to those lampricide and barrier effective programs that we have. So I'm super excited about this area especially, and it could really represent maybe the future of sea lamprey control, especially on some of these smaller systems around the lakes. We're forming these really good collaboratives with our local partners, including Indigenous partners, to be able to implement sea lamprey control, and I think that's a tremendous opportunity that we have. Areas for improvement. I talked about the control board process, and I think it's good that we have representation on that board from the Indigenous perspective, but I think we can think about it. Maybe we don't have enough. And we need to think about how strategically we can incorporate more of that perspective on the board, and also to be thinking about this more from a two-eyed seeing approach as well. Don mentioned some transition with the leadership with the control board. That's a couple of steps away at this point, but once we get those changes implemented, I think we're going to have some really good opportunity to make some advances in this realm in the future. We obviously have resource needs too. With the number of First Nations that are around the lakes, it takes a lot of time and staff work to be able to go out and forge those meaningful relationships, to be able to go early, go often, have the same folks do the engagement to make sure that you're building those in-person relationships. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of staff to implement this at this point. It's great that we have those local relationships, especially with our control agents and the Indigenous communities, especially located around those in the nearby areas. But we do need to have more resources to be able to do this on a larger scale and meaningfully. So next steps, we're going to continue our engagement processes and continue to form and forge relationships through these engagements with local partners, and to make sure that we're doing sea lamprey control responsibly, and sea lamprey control that meets the community values around the Great Lakes. We're always trying to do better with our training, with our education, so we're going to continue in that line as well. And lastly, I'll just leave, we had an Indigenous Knowledge Retreat this last summer hosted by Nawash First Nations, and it was an awesome opportunity to get together with community members and scientists and other management agency folks, and to talk about how we can better engage our community partners, not only in science but also in management. And I think it's these experiences, I think, that are really sort of groundbreaking and really provide us with great opportunities to to better understand how we can do sea lamprey control better and more inclusively in the future. So I think I'm right at time, but we have the discussion panel. So thank you very much.
Mike, thanks very much.